The sirens screamed through every corridor of the massive Coalition command ship, "Eternal Justice." Admiral Vextar's clawed hands gripped the edge of the holographic display table as red warnings flashed across dozens of star charts. His reptilian eyes, which had seen 1,000 battles across the galaxy, now held something they rarely showed fear. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Colony 7-9. Communications," called out Communications Officer Zilthera, her blue-tinted skin pale with stress. It's not good, sir." The main view screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage from a security camera on the outer rim world of Harmony Station. What had once been a thriving mining colony of 50,000 beings was now a smoking ruin. Buildings lay crushed like children's toys, their metal frames twisted into impossible shapes. Bodies of different alien species lay scattered across the settlement's main plaza, dromedons with their forearms, crystal-skinned Vortanians. Even some of the massive rock-like granitoids who were supposedly indestructible, but it wasn't the destruction that made Admiral Vextar's blood run cold. It was the sound coming from the speakers, a deep, rhythmic roaring that seemed to shake the very fabric of space itself. "How many?" the Admiral asked quietly. "Just one, sir," Lieutenant Commander Colwyn replied, his 4 insectoid arms clicking nervously as he worked at his control station. "Alice, a single Warbeast did all of this in less than 3 hours." The footage shifted to show the creature responsible. Even through the static-filled recording, the Warbeast was terrifying to behold. 12 feet of pure destruction wrapped in armor that looked like living crystal, shifting from deep purple to burning orange as it moved. Its 6 powerful legs carried it across the ruined colony with predatory grace, while energy discharges sparked between its razor-sharp claws like miniature lightning storms. "Replay the attack sequence," Admiral Vextar ordered, his voice steady despite the horror on screen. The recording jumped back several hours, showing Harmony Station as it had been peaceful, bustling with activity as miners prepared for their evening shift. Then came the first roar, echoing across the settlement like thunder. The colonists looked around in confusion, not yet understanding the death that was coming for them. The Warbeast appeared at the colony's eastern gate, moving with impossible speed. The automated defense turrets, military-grade plasma cannons that could punch through starship armor opened fire immediately. The creature didn't even slow down. The energy beams struck its crystalline hide and simply scattered like light through a prism, creating beautiful but useless rainbow patterns in the air. "Look at this part," Dr. Yelanara said, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Was the Coalition's top expert on alien biology a thin, elegant being whose species had been studying other life forms for over 10,000 years? Watch how it moves through the weapon's fire. The Warbeast flowed around the plasma beams like water, its body seeming to predict where each shot would land before the turrets even fired. When a lucky blast did make direct contact, the creature's armor absorbed the impact and actually grew brighter, as if feeding on the energy. "It's not just avoiding our weapons," Dr. Yelanara continued, pointing at specific moments in the footage. "It's learning from them. Watch, the first plasma bolt staggers it slightly. The second one barely makes it pause. By the 10th shot, it's completely immune." The recording showed the Warbeast reaching the first line of defenders, brave Coalition security forces who had answered the colony's distress call. These weren't civilian miners, but trained soldiers from a dozen different worlds, armed with the best weapons the galaxy could provide. They lasted exactly 47 seconds. "Neural disruptors," Admiral Vextar noted grimly as he watched a squad of Mentori troops fire their psychic weapons at the creature. The Mentori were telepathic beings whose mind attack technology could drop a rampaging Gorthak beast in its tracks. Against the Warbeast, the weapons might as well have been flashlights. The creature tore through the defenders like they weren't even there. But what disturbed Admiral Vextar most wasn't the violence, it was what happened next. The Warbeast stopped in the middle of the plaza, surrounded by the destruction it had caused, and did something no weapon should ever do. It looked sad. The massive creature tilted its head skyward, letting out a long, mournful cry that was nothing like its earlier roars of fury. For almost a full minute, It stood motionless among the ruins, its crystalline armor shifting to deep blue colors that somehow conveyed loneliness better than any words could. "There," Dr. Yelanara said urgently. "Right there. Do you see it?" "What?" growled General Thaxmer, the Coalition's chief military strategist. His insectoid features were twisted with frustration. "I see a monster that just killed 50,000 innocent beings. No, look closer. Watch its body language. The way it moves its head, the position of its limbs. I've studied thousands of species across the galaxy, and I know distressed behavior when I see it." Admiral Vexstar leaned forward, studying the footage more carefully. The Warbeast was exhibiting strange behaviors, repetitive movements, sudden stops and starts, moments where it seemed to be listening to sounds that weren't there. "It's the same pattern we saw on Kepler 7, Dr. Yelanara continued. "And on New Rigel, and on every other world these creatures have attacked. They destroy everything in sight. Then they stop and ... mourn." "Weapons don't mourn," General Thaxmer snapped. "These aren't just weapons," the doctor replied. "The Mordock created them, yes, but they created them from living tissue. These creatures have nervous systems, brain structures, emotional responses. When the Mordock civilization collapsed 3 months ago, their control systems died with them." The main screen switched to a galactic map showing the spread of Warbeast attacks, where dots marked destroyed colonies. Yellow ones indicated worlds under current attack, and green showed the few places that had managed to evacuate in time. The pattern was spreading outward from Mordock space like a plague. 17 worlds lost," Admiral Vexstar said quietly. "Over 2 million beings dead or missing. Our best fleets can't even slow these things down," Lieutenant Commander Colin S. Report made the situation even worse. "Sir, the 10th Fleet engaged a pack of 3 Warbeasts near Sigma Prime yesterday. Admiral Korth deployed everything quantum mines. Dark matter torpedoes, even the experimental gravity bombs the engineers have been working on." "Results?" Admiral Vexstar asked, though he already knew the answer from Colon's expression. "Complete failure, sir. The Warbeasts adapted to every weapon system within minutes. When Admiral Court H ordered a full retreat, the creatures, they followed the fleet. It's not to attack, but almost like they were trying to communicate. The fleet barely escaped when the Warbeasts suddenly stopped pursuit and returned to the planet." Dr. Yelanara pulled up biological scans of captured Warbeast tissue samples recovered from attack sites at great cost in lives. "Neural pathways. They're incredibly complex, far more sophisticated than anything we've seen before. The Mordock didn't just create weapons, they created artificial life forms with advanced cognitive abilities. But why are they attacking innocent colonies?" General Thaxmer demanded. "Maybe they're not attacking," Dr. Yelanara said quietly. "Maybe they're trying to find something or someone." The bridge fell silent except for the constant hum of the ship's engines and the distant wail of sirens from other Coalition vessels. Admiral Vexstar stared at the galactic map, watching as another yellow dot turned, read another world lost to the Warbeast rampage. "Sir," Communications Officer Zilthera called out, "we're receiving priority transmissions from Coalition High Command. They're asking for recommendations." Admiral Vexstar's laugh was bitter. The most powerful military alliance in galactic history was asking a single admiral for advice because they were completely out of options. 17 different species had contributed their best technology, their finest warriors, their most brilliant scientists. None of it had made any difference. "Send a message to all Coalition worlds," he ordered finally. "Emergency protocols are now in effect. Any being, any species, any government with unconventional ideas or approaches to this crisis should contact us immediately. We're open to any suggestions, no matter how unusual they might seem." As the communications officer began transmitting the desperate plea across the galaxy, Admiral Vexstar turned back to the footage of the Warbeast standing alone in the ruins of Harmony Station. The creature was still there, still making that mournful sound. Its armor now a deep shade of blue that reminded him of tears. Somewhere out there, more Warbeasts were moving through space, leaving destruction in their wake. But for the first time since this crisis began. Admiral Vexstar found himself wondering if destruction was really what they wanted. Captain Lee Deho was enjoying his morning coffee in the observation deck of the New Dawn when the emergency transmission arrived. The human colony ship was orbiting Haven 7, a beautiful green world where his people had built a peaceful farming community far from the chaos of galactic politics. Through the massive viewport, he could see the golden wheat fields that stretched across the planet's main continent, dotted with small settlements where human families lived simple, quiet lives. The tranquil scene shattered when his communicator crackled to life with an urgent message from the ship's bridge. Captain to the command center immediately came the voice of his first officer, Commander Park Jimin. "We've received a priority transmission from Galactic Coalition High Command," and Deho nearly choked on his coffee. In 50 years of human membership in the galactic community, the Coalition had never sent them anything more important than trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. Most alien species still thought of humans as the new kids in the neighborhood, technologically backward, militarily weak, and generally not worth much attention. He arrived on the bridge to find his senior staff clustered around the main communications console, their faces showing a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Commander Park Jimin, a veteran spacer whose family had been among the first humans to leave Earth. Low OKED, particularly stunned. "Sir, you need to hear this yourself," Jimin said, activating the recorded message. Admiral Vexstar's reptilian face appeared on the main screen, but this wasn't the proud, confident leader the Coalition usually presented to the galaxy. His scales looked dull, his eyes were bloodshot, and his voice carried a note of desperation that sent chills down Deho's spine. "To all member species of the Galactic Coalition," the Admiral began, "we face an unprecedented crisis. The Warbeast attacks have now claimed 17 worlds and over 2 million lives. Our conventional military responses have proven completely ineffective. These creatures adapt to every weapon we deploy and seem immune to all known forms of warfare." The message continued with technical details about failed weapon systems and devastating casualty reports. But it was the final part that made Deho sit up straight in his captain's chair. "We are therefore requesting immediate assistance from any species with unconventional approaches to biological warfare or creature management. We are particularly interested in perspectives that do not rely primarily on military force. Any government or organization with relevant experience should contact Coalition Command immediately." When the message ended, the bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's engines. Communications Officer Eltihan Menesio was the first to speak. "Captain, they're asking for help with biological warfare. But we don't have any weapons. Like that, we're farmers and colonists, not warriors." Commander Jimin frowned as he pulled up the detailed files the Coalition had included with their message. "Wait, look at this. They're not asking for weapons. They want help understanding these creatures. Listen to this part again. Unique perspective on biological entities and approaches that do not rely primarily on military force." Deho leaned back in his chair, thinking. Humans had always been different from the other galactic species in one crucial way. While most aliens had developed advanced technology to dominate their environments, humans had spent thousands of years learning to work with other living things. They had domesticated hundreds of species, turned wild wolves into loyal dogs, and figured out how to live alongside everything from house cats to farm animals. They want our animal expertise, he realized suddenly. They're not seeing these warbeasts as weapons anymore. They're seeing them as creatures that might be manageable. But Captain L.T. Han said nervously, "These things have destroyed entire worlds. They're not exactly stray puppies." "No," Deho agreed, "but maybe that's exactly why they need us. Every other species in the galaxy approaches problems with bigger guns and stronger shields. We approach them by trying to understand what makes things tick." He stood up and began pacing across the bridge, his mind racing through the possibilities. "Get me Dr. Kim Sora from the Agricultural Department, and tell her to bring Yujin." Commander Jimin raised an eyebrow. "Sir, you want to bring an 8-year-old girl into a conversation about galaxy-threatening monsters?" That 8-year-old girl has tamed every aggressive animal on this colony, Deho replied, including Mr. Whiskers. The mention of Mr. Whiskers made several bridge crew members chuckle despite the serious situation. The colony's guard cat was a genetically enhanced feline designed to protect agricultural installations from pests. Unfortunately, the enhancement process had also made him incredibly aggressive toward humans. For months, the cat had terrorized anyone who tried to work in the storage facilities, till little Eugene had somehow made friends with him. 10 minutes later, Dr. Kim Sora arrived on the bridge with her daughter in tow. Sora was Haven Sevens, leading animal behaviorist, brilliant scientist, who had spent her career studying how different species could coexist peacefully. Eugene, meanwhile, was a curious 8-year-old who seemed to have an almost magical ability to connect with any living creature she met. Captain, Dr. Sora said after reviewing the Coalition's data files, "This is fascinating. Look at these behavioral patterns." She pulled up holographic displays showing Warbeast attack sequences from multiple worlds. Her trained eye immediately picked out details that military analysts had missed. See here? The repetitive movements after each attack? The way they stop and seem to listen to something that isn't there. The sudden changes in aggression levels. These are classic signs of extreme psychological distress. Eugene had climbed into one of the bridge chairs and was watching the footage with intense concentration. After several minutes, she tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mom, they look just like Mr. Whiskers when he gets scared by loud noises." The comparison seemed absurd at first, comparing galaxy-destroying monsters to a cranky house cat. But Dr. Sora's expression grew thoughtful as she considered her daughter's observation. "You know what? She's right. Look at the body language. The way they hold their heads, the positioning of their limbs. I've seen this exact behavior pattern in overstimulated animals. They're not acting like predators hunting prey, or acting like terrified creatures lashing out at everything around them." Commander Jimin pulled up more footage, this time focusing on the moments after each attack, when the Warbeasts would stop their destruction and emit those mournful cries. "If they're really just scared animals," he said slowly, "then maybe what they need isn't bigger weapons pointed at them. Maybe they need someone who knows how to calm frightened creatures." Eugene hopped down from her chair and walked over to the main display, studying the image of a warbeast standing in the ruins of a destroyed city. The creature's crystalline armor was shifting through deep blue colors, and its posture radiated a sadness that was unmistakable once you knew how to look for it. "They just need someone to understand them," she said quietly, her small hand pressed against the screen. "They're lost and scared, and they don't know how to ask for help." Dr. Sora nodded, her scientific mind already working through the possibilities. "Captain, I think we can help. But we'll need to approach this completely differently than the Coalition has been doing. No weapons, no aggressive postures, no loud noises or sudden movements. We'll need to treat these creatures like what they really are: traumatized animals who need rehabilitation, not enemies who need destroying." Captain Deho looked around at his bridge crew, seeing the mixture of excitement and terror in their faces. This was either the most important moment in human galactic history or a suicide mission disguised as diplomacy. "All right," he said finally. "Set course for the nearest Coalition fleet, and send a message to Admiral Vexstar. Let him the humans are coming, and we're bringing our secret weapon." "What should I tell them our secret weapon is?" asked Eltihan. Deho glanced at Eugene, who was still studying the Warbeast footage with the intense focus that had helped her befriend every difficult creature on the colony. "Tell them it's compassion," he said, "and a little girl who thinks monsters just need friends." As the new dawn changed course toward Coalition space, Eugene remained at the main display, watching the footage of Warbeasts over and over again. To everyone else, they looked like instruments of destruction. But to her, they looked like the biggest, saddest pets in the galaxy, just waiting for someone to show them kindness. The massive Coalition command ship, Eternal Vigilance, hung in space like a floating city, its hull bristling with weapon systems that had proven useless against the Warbeast threat. As the human shuttle New Dawn's Hope approached the docking bay, Captain Lee Deho could see dozens of alien warships surrounding them, vessels from every corner of the galaxy, all bearing the scars of failed battles. The shuttle's landing was smooth, but the atmosphere in the docking bay was anything but calm. Hundreds of alien beings moved with urgent purpose, loading supplies, tending to wounded soldiers, and preparing equipment for missions that everyone knew would probably fail. The air hummed with the sound of multiple languages as different species tried to coordinate their desperate efforts. Admiral Vexstar was waiting at the airlock with a full honor guard, but his reptilian features showed more exhaustion than ceremony. His scales, normally a proud emerald green, had faded to a dull gray that spoke of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. Beside him stood General Thaxmer, whose insectoid body clicked and chittered with nervous energy, and Dr. Yelenara, the Coalition's chief scientist. The airlock hissed open, and Captain Deho stepped out first, followed by Commander Park Jimin and several other human officers. But when Dr. Kim Sora emerged holding hands with 8-year-old Eugene, the entire welcoming committee seemed to freeze. Admiral Vexstar's eyes fixed on the small human child, and for a moment his military composure cracked. "Captain Deho," he said slowly, "when we asked for your best specialists, we were expecting someone different." "This is Dr. Kim Sora," Deho replied with a slight smile.
"Ow."
"Our colony's leading expert on animal behavior and domestication. She's successfully worked with over 40 different species, including several that other experts declared impossible to tame." General Thaxmer's compound eyes glittered with barely contained frustration. His species, the Krillians, were natural warriors who solved problems through superior firepower and tactical brilliance. The idea of bringing a child to a war council went against everything he believed in. "Admiral, with all due respect to our human allies," he said, his voice buzzing with agitation, "this is not the time for bringing civilians into an active war zone. These warbeasts have destroyed 17 worlds. They've killed millions of beings. This requires military solutions, not whatever this is supposed to be." Eugene looked up at the towering, insect-like alien without a trace of fear. General Thaxmer stood nearly 8 feet tall, the razor-sharp mandibles and arms that could crush steel. But she just smiled at him like he was any other adult she was meeting for the first time. "Hello," she said politely. "Are you the one in charge of fighting the scary animals?" The general's mandibles clicked in confusion. No one had ever called him anything but sir or general in decades of military service. "Ah, yes, child. Am General Thaxmer, Supreme Commander of Coalition Ground Forces." "That's a very long name," Eugene observed seriously. "Can I call you Mr. Bug instead? It's easier to remember." The docking bay fell completely silent. Several alien officers made choking sounds that might have been laughter or horror. General Thaxmer's compound eyes went wide with shock, while Admiral Vexstar found himself fighting back what he suspected might be amusement. "Eugene," her mother said gently, "remember what we talked about on the ship. Different species have different customs." "Oh, right," Eugene nodded. "Sorry, Mr. General Bug, sir. Can I see the monsters now?" Admiral Vexstar found himself genuinely charmed by the child's directness. In a galaxy where diplomacy often involved hours of careful protocol and formal speeches, there was something refreshing about such simple honesty. "They're called warbeasts, young one," he explained, crouching down to her eye level, "and they're very, very dangerous. They've caused more destruction than any enemy we've ever faced." Jin considered this information seriously, her small face scrunched up in concentration. "All scared animals are dangerous," she replied matter-of-factly. "That's why they need help. When animals are scared and nobody understands them, they do bad things because they don't know what else to do." Dr. Yelenara, who had been silent until now, stepped forward with sudden interest. "Child, what makes you think these creatures are scared?" "Mom showed me the pictures on the ship," Eugene explained. "They move like Mr. Whiskers when he gets upset. It's all jerky and angry, but also sad, and they make crying noises after they break things, just like Mr. Whiskers does when he accidentally knocks over his food bowl." Dr. Sora activated her portable holographic projector, filling the air above them with detailed footage of warbeast attacks from multiple worlds. But instead of focusing on the destruction, she highlighted specific behavioral patterns that military analysts had overlooked. "Look here," she said, pointing to a sequence where a Warbeast had just finished destroying a settlement. What happens after the violence stops? See how it moves its head? The way it shifts its weight from one foot to another. These are classic displacement behaviors actions that animals perform when they're experiencing severe psychological stress. She switched to another clip, showing a Warbeast that had stopped mid-attack and was standing perfectly still in the middle of a burning city. And here this is what we call shutdown behavior. When an animal becomes so overstimulated that it simply stops responding to external stimuli. It's a defense mechanism. General Thaxmer buzzed with frustration. Dr. Kim, these creatures have killed thousands of Coalition soldiers. They've adapted to every weapon we've deployed against them. They're not pets having behavioral problems there. Living weapons designed for maximum destruction. Because everyone keeps trying to fight them, Yujin interrupted, her voice carrying the patient tone of someone explaining something obvious to a slow adult. When Mr. Whiskers was being mean to everyone, the maintenance workers kept using those big noisemakers to scare him away. But that just made him madder and scarier. She walked over to the holographic display, seemingly unimpressed by the massive creature shown there. But when I sat down quietly and talked to him nice, he stopped being mean. He was just scared because everything was too loud and too bright and nobody was being gentle with him. Admiral Vexstar exchanged glances with his senior staff. The child's logic was simple, almost naive, but it was also the first explanation. They'd heard that actually made sense of the Warbeasts' contradictory behavior patterns. Dr. Yelinara pulled up her own data files, comparing them with Dr. Sora's analysis. There might be something to this approach, she admitted reluctantly. We've been so focused on the destruction that we haven't properly analyzed the creature's post-attack behavior. But if we look at it as stress response rather than tactical, planning ... it changes everything, Dr. Sora finished. These aren't evil monsters enjoying destruction. They're traumatized beings lashing out because they don't know how else to communicate their distress. Commander Park Jamin, who had been quietly observing the exchange, spoke up. Admiral, we have a unique opportunity here. There's a contained Warbeast on Research Station Alphanine, correct? If Dr. Sora and Yujin's theory is right, we might be able to test it under controlled conditions. Dr. Yelinara nodded slowly. Yes. We captured one specimen 3 days ago, after it exhausted itself attacking an abandoned mining station. It's heavily sedated but still conscious. We've been trying to study its biology, but every attempt to interact with it has resulted in violent responses. Because you've been approaching it like scientists studying a weapon, Dr. Sora explained. What if we approached it like animal behaviorists working with a traumatized creature? Admiral Vexstar felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. What would you need? No weapons in the area, Dr. Sora said immediately. No loud noises, no sudden movements, no bright lights. Everyone stays calm and speaks quietly. And absolutely no one makes any aggressive gestures or threatening sounds. General Thaxmer's mandibles clicked skeptically. And if this approach fails? If the creature breaks free and attacks? There won't be danger if we do this right, Yujin said with the absolute confidence that only a child could possess. Animals don't hurt people who are being nice to them. They only hurt people who are being scary, as they prepared to depart. For Research Station Alphanine, Yujin clutched a small canvas bag that she'd brought from the New Dawn. Inside were treats that she used to befriend animals back on Haven Savins, simple protein cubes and sweet nutrient bars that most creatures seem to enjoy. Her mother had tried to explain that alien creatures probably wouldn't want human-animal treats, but Yujin had insisted on bringing them anyway. Sometimes it's not about the treats, Mom, she had said during the shuttle ride. It's about showing that you care enough to offer something nice. Even if they don't want it, they'll know you were trying to be friendly. As their shuttle headed toward Alphanine, Admiral Vexstar found himself wondering if the galaxy's salvation might really rest in the hands of a small human child who thought the universe's most terrifying weapons just needed a friend. Research Station Alphanine floated in the darkness of space like a metallic fortress, its hull covered in warning lights and defensive turrets. The station had been built specifically to contain the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. with walls made of reinforced durasteel and energy barriers that could hold back a black hole. As the shuttle carrying the human delegation approached the docking bay, Captain Deho could see the scorch marks on the station's exterior, evidence of the Warbeast's violent capture just 3 days earlier. The station's interior was a maze of sterile corridors and security checkpoints. Every few meters, automated turrets tracked their movement, while force field generators hummed ominously in the walls. Dr. Yelanara led the group through multiple layers of containment, each one requiring biometric scans and authorization codes that took precious minutes to process. "The containment chamber is at the station's core," she explained as they walked through another checkpoint. "We've isolated it with 7 different barrier systems, each one capable of stopping a Starship-class weapon. The creature is under constant sedation, but we've learned not to underestimate its capabilities." They passed several observation rooms where Coalition scientists monitored banks of screens showing endless data streams, biological readings, energy signatures, and behavioral analysis charts that painted a picture of barely contained destruction. The Warbeast had been unconscious for most of its captivity, but even in sleep, its body generated enough energy to power a small city. Admiral Vexstar walked beside Eugen, still struggling to accept that their best hope for ending this crisis was an 8-year-old human child. "Young one," he said carefully, "what we're about to show you is unlike anything you've ever seen. This creature is responsible for the deaths of thousands of beings. Are you certain you're prepared for this?" Eugen looked up at him with the serious expression she wore when thinking about important things. "Mr. Admiral, have you ever seen a really scared animal? Like really, really scared?" "I know, I suppose I haven't." "They do terrible things when they're scared," she explained patiently. "But they don't want to do terrible things. They just don't know how else to make the scary feelings stop." The final security door was massive, 3 feet of solid durasteel that required 4 different keys to open. As it slid apart with a deep, grinding sound, the group entered the observation chamber that surrounded the containment area.
The room
was filled with monitoring equipment and control stations, all focused on the central chamber visible through a thick, transparent barrier. And there, in the middle of a space that could have held a small spacecraft, lay the Warbeast. Even the human delegation, who had seen the footage dozens of times, were struck silent by the creature's presence. It was enormous, 12 feet of crystalline armor that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Its 6 limbs were each as thick as tree trunks, ending in claws that could slice through starship hull plating. Energy field restraints held it motionless, but even unconscious, it radiated a sense of barely contained power that made the air itself feel heavy. "Magnificent," whispered Commander Park Jimin. "No wonder conventional weapons couldn't stop them." Clicked nervously as he studied the creature. "The neural suppressors are at maximum strength. But look at these readings. Its brain activity is still incredibly high. It's dreaming, and even its dreams are generating enough psychic energy to overload our sensors." Dr. Sora was already running, her portable scanner over the creature, her face growing more concerned with each reading. "The stress hormone levels are catastrophic," she reported. "This creature is experiencing the equivalent of a constant panic attack. No wonder it's been so violent. It's been in a state of terror since the moment it woke up without its creators." Eugene had pressed her face against the viewing window, studying the Warbeast with the same intense focus she'd shown the footage. But instead of fear, her expression showed something that surprised all the adults' sympathy. "He's crying," she said suddenly, her small hand flat against the transparent barrier. General Thaxmer's compound eyes glittered with disbelief. "What? It's a weapon, child. Weapons don't cry." "Look at his eyes," Eugen insisted, pointing at the creature's face. Even through the armor and alien features, there was something unmistakably sad about the way the Warbeast's head was tilted. "And listen to the sounds he makes." As if responding to her words, the creature made a low, rumbling sound that echoed through the containment chamber. It wasn't the roar of aggression they'd heard in the attack footage, it was something softer, more mournful. "He's scared and lonely and hurt," Eugen continued. just like Mr. Whiskers was when everyone was being mean to him. Dr. Sora's scanner beeped with new readings, and her eyes widened as she saw the results. She's right. Look at these neurochemical patterns: severe anxiety, depression, and something else. Loneliness. This creature is psychologically programmed to bond with other beings, but it's been completely isolated since its creators died. Admiral Vexstar stared at the readings in amazement. You're saying it's homesick? More than that, Dr. Sora replied. The Mordock didn't just create weapons. They created beings that needed social connection to function properly. When that connection was severed, it drove them into a state of psychological collapse. Eugene turned away from the window and looked up at the assembled officers with the patient expression of someone who'd figured out an obvious solution. Can we turn off the things that are making him sleepy? I want to talk to him. The suggestion sent a wave of alarm through the observation chamber. General Thaxmer's entire body bristled with agitation, while several coalition officers began reaching for their weapons. Absolutely not, Admiral Vexstar barked. That creature could break free and kill us all in seconds. No, he wouldn't, Eugene replied with the quiet certainty that only children possessed. Not if we show him we're friends. Animals only hurt people who are being scary to them. The debate that followed was intense and chaotic, with military officers shouting about safety protocols, while scientists argued about unprecedented research opportunities. But Dr. Sora's calm voice eventually cut through the noise. We could try a partial reduction, she suggested. Lower the neural suppression gradually, while monitoring all biological signs. If there's any indication of aggressive behavior, we restore full containment immediately. Dr. Yelanara, despite her scientific curiosity, looked terrified. The risk is enormous. If the creature breaks free in here, there's nowhere to run. But if it works, Admiral Vexstar said slowly, we might finally understand how to stop this crisis without more bloodshed. After another 20 minutes of heated discussion, they agreed to a carefully controlled experiment. All non-essential. Personnel were evacuated from the station, emergency protocols were activated, and Dr. Yelanara, shaking hands, hovered over the neural suppressor controls. Beginning partial suppression reduction, she announced. Lowering fields to 80% strength. The change was immediate. The Warbeast's crystalline armor began to glow brighter. Its massive form shifted slightly as higher brain functions came online. Its eyes opened multifaceted organs that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and pain. Eugene approached the containment barrier as the energy fields dimmed slightly. The creature's head rose slowly, and those ancient, intelligent eyes focused. On the small human girl standing fearlessly before it, a low rumble emerged from its throat, the same sound that had preceded the destruction of entire cities. Every adult in the room tensed, hands moving toward weapons and emergency controls. But Eugene just smiled and settled cross-legged on the floor, as if she were about to have a conversation with a neighbor's pet. Hello, she said softly, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. My name is Eugene. What's your name? The rumbling stopped abruptly. The creature tilted its massive head to one side, studying this strange small being who showed no fear, carried no weapons, and spoke with genuine kindness. For the first time since the crisis began, a Warbeast was looking at a sentient being without seeing an enemy. The news of Eugene's breakthrough with the Warbeast traveled through Coalition space, faster than any hyperspace message, within hours. Every major news network across 17 different star systems was broadcasting footage of the little human, a girl sitting peacefully with a creature that had terrorized the galaxy for months. The image was impossible to believe her. A small child in a simple blue dress, gently petting the crystalline head of a monster that could have crushed starships with its bare claws. On the human agricultural world of New Terra, Dr. Han Soo-jin was tending to her experimental alien livestock. When the emergency broadcast interrupted her morning routine, she stood in her barn surrounded by six-legged Andromedan cattle and crystalline Vortanian sheep, watching in amazement as the footage played on her communicator screen. Incredible, she whispered to herself. They're treating it like a traumatized animal, not a weapon. Within the hour, She had contacted Coalition Command to volunteer her services. Her message was simple. I've been working with aggressive alien fauna for 20 years. If you need people who understand scared animals, I'm ready to help. Similar messages poured in from human colonies across the galaxy. Dr. Park Min-ho, specialized in predator rehabilitation on the frontier world of Haven's Edge. Dr. Lee Soo-bin's work with empathic crystal creatures had made her famous among xenobiologists. Even retired military veterinarian commander Kim Dong-woo, who had spent decades treating wounded animals on dozens of different worlds. Captain Daeho found himself at the center of the largest interspecies cooperation effort in galactic history. His small colony ship New Dawn had become the coordination hub for what the media was calling Operation Compassion, though the humans involved preferred to think of it simply as doing what came naturally. Dr. Sora worked around the clock to establish training protocols based on her daughter's instinctive techniques. The principles she developed were elegantly simple. Approach slowly and calmly. Keep your voice soft and steady. Never make sudden movements. Treat each Warbeast as an individual being with its own personality and needs, not as a generic weapon to be neutralized. Remember, she told the growing group of human volunteers during their briefing sessions, these creatures have been created to be emotionally sensitive. They read our intentions through our body language, our tone of voice, even our scent. If you approach them with fear or aggression, they'll respond with fear and aggression. But if you approach them with genuine kindness, the first large-scale field tests took place on Kepler-7, a mining world that had been under siege by 12 warbeasts for over 3 weeks. The planet's surface was scarred with massive craters where the creatures had torn through settlements and industrial complexes. The few survivors had retreated to underground bunkers, sending desperate pleas for evacuation that no coalition fleet had been able to answer. Commander Park Jamin led the human response team, piloting a convoy of unarmed shuttles down through Kepler-7's turbulent atmosphere. His team consisted of 15 volunteers and amiable behaviorists, veterinarians, and ordinary colonists who had shown unusual skill with difficult creatures. None of them carried weapons, and their shuttles bore no military markings, just the simple blue and white colors of civilian rescue operations. Control, this is Field Team Alpha, Jimin reported as their shuttles touched down in what had once been the planet's main spaceport. We're on the ground. No sign of hostile contact yet. The warbeasts appeared within minutes, drawn by the sound and vibration of the landing shuttles. They came from all directions, massive crystalline forms, moving across the devastated landscape with terrifying grace. Their armor glowed with angry orange and red patterns. Their roars echoed across the empty city like thunder. Any sane military force would have opened fire, immediately or retreated to orbit. Instead, the human team simply stood beside their shuttles and waited. The lead warbeast was enormous even by the standards of its species, with battle scars across its crystalline hide that spoke of weeks of violent encounters with coalition forces. It charged directly toward the human landing party, its claws leaving deep gouges in the broken pavement as it ran. Nam Tae-woo, middle-aged man who had spent his life working with aggressive livestock on the farming world of Green Valley, stepped forward to meet the charging creature. His colleagues thought he had lost his mind. Tae-woo just smiled and kept his hands relaxed at his sides. The warbeast stopped just meters away from him, rearing up on its hind legs and releasing a roar that shattered what remained of the spaceport's windows. The sound was deafening, primal, and absolutely terrifying. "Hey there, big guy," Tae-woo said calmly, as if he were greeting a neighbor's dog. "Having a rough day?" The creature's massive head tilted to one side, the same curious gesture that Yujin had first noticed. Its roaring stopped, replaced by a lower rumbling sound that seemed almost ... questioning. Tae-woo began using the techniques Dr. Sora had taught them, speaking in consistent, gentle tones while keeping his body language completely non-threatening. He talked about the weather, about the journey from his home world, about anything that came to mind, all in the same calm, friendly voice he used with frightened animals back home. One by one, the other warbeasts gathered around the humans. Instead, of attacking, they seemed genuinely curious about these strange beings who showed no fear and carried no weapons. Some of the creatures actually lay down, their massive forms settling onto the broken ground as they listened to the humans talk. "Control. This is Field Team Alpha," Commander G-Man reported, his voice filled with wonder. "The Warbeasts are responding positively. No signs of aggression. I think they're trying to communicate with us." Dr. Lee Subin, who was monitoring the creatures' biosignatures with portable scanners, made an incredible discovery. "Their stress hormones are dropping rapidly," she reported. "Heart rates normalizing, brain chemistry stabilizing. Just being around calm, non-threatening beings is having a therapeutic effect." Over the following hours, the human team established what could only be called friendships with the Warbeasts. The creatures followed them around the ruined city like enormous pets, occasionally making soft vocalizations that sounded almost like purring. When the humans sat down to eat their field rations, several Warbeasts settled nearby, their crystalline armor shifting to peaceful blue and green colors. The breakthrough came when Dr. Park Min-ho noticed that one of the smaller Warbeasts was limping badly, favoring its left front leg. Despite warnings from his colleagues, he approached the injured creature with his medical scanner. "Easy, girl," he said softly, using the same gentle tone he employed with wounded animals. "Let me take a look at that leg," the Warbeast actually held still while he examined the injury, a deep gash in its crystalline armor that was slowly leaking a luminous blue fluid. Using techniques adapted from his veterinary training, Dr. Park carefully cleaned and sealed the wound with medical foam from his kit. The creature made a sound unlike any they had heard before, a soft, musical tone that seemed to express gratitude. Then, to everyone's amazement, it gently touched Dr. Park's shoulder with one massive claw, careful not to harm him. "They're not weapons," Dr. Park reported back to the command ship, his voice thick with emotion. "They're people. Alien people, but people nonetheless. They feel pain, they remember kindness, and they want to trust us." Word of the Kepler-7 success spread throughout the galaxy within days. Similar human teams were deployed to other worlds, under Warbeast siege, and the results were consistently remarkable. Creatures that had been unstoppable engines of destruction were transformed into gentle giants through nothing more than patience, kindness, and understanding, Dr. Sora made. Her most important discovery when she realized that the Warbeasts weren't just intelligent, they were empathic. The Mordock had enhanced their emotional sensitivity to make them more effective warriors, able to sense their enemies' fear and use it against them. But when their creators vanished, the Warbeasts were left drowning in overwhelming psychic impressions of terror and aggression from everyone they encountered. They became mirrors, she explained to the assembled Coalition Council during her formal report. When faced with fear and violence, they reflected those emotions back amplified. But when approached with calm and kindness, they reflected that instead. The final transformation came when Yujin returned to research Station Alpha 9 to visit the first Warbeast she had befriended. The containment fields had been permanently disabled. The creature, now affectionately called Hope by the research staff, lived in a specially designed habitat that felt more like a garden than a prison. When Yujin entered the chamber, Hope immediately approached her, lowering his massive head so she could scratch behind his crystalline ears. The little girl's delighted laughter echoed through the station, a sound that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. "See?" Yujin said to the assembled officials, her small arms wrapped around Hope's enormous neck. "He just needed a friend." The end.